Okay, call me to order. Let's stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll read the district's mission statement. Crowded by our history as one of the oldest publicly supported schools in Wisconsin, Mineral Point School District is the heart of a small community that educates and inspires our students for a bright future in the big world. Roll call, please.
Bush.
Here.
Munn.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Eisner.
Here.
Netka.
Here.
Johnston.
Here.
Gelding.
Here. Okay, first we'll do the recognitions of the month. We'll do the OSBE Honor Roll recognitions. Yeah, whoever's here.
Democrat Tribune, Dodgeville Chronicle. I didn't know if anybody would know the Riley boys. They don't get past the gym when they come over. The sister newspapers, both still locally owned by the Riley brothers, have been a vital communication partner of our district and students' accomplishments for nearly as long as we've had a school. Mineral Point's newspaper, the Democrat Tribune, began in 1849, and our first school started in 1829. Combing through pages of the archives, you can find a true and invaluable history of our district. In the modern day, we are still grateful for their coverage of academics, athletics, performing arts, agricultural, and other accomplishments of our young people, as well as school board meetings and referenda. They help us build trust and transparency with our community, as well as tell our story and reach a wider demographic of our population, especially those who may not have internet access to read our news electronically. So thank you very much to the Democrat Tribune and the Dodgeville Chronicle. Mineral Point Kiwanis Club. Somebody want to come forward for a picture there? Mineral Point Kiwanis has been serving the children of Mineral Point since 1927. One of their most famous recognitions is the Student of the Month program, which has been an important celebration for approximately 50 years, now having honored multiple generations of pointers. The Kiwanis is also the parent organization of our high school Key Club, and the groups team up on fundraisers and other activities, including the Halloween costume contest and Easter egg hunt. Our annual National Honor Society banquet is sponsored by the Kiwanis, and the club selects a distinguished alumni speaker for the program. Another fun event is the Kiwanis Read-In campaign, where the club purchases books and reads them to elementary classrooms. In town, Kiwanis is famous for their homemade pies, holding several sales a year, including a pie day at school in March. The club donates proceeds to scholarships for graduating seniors. Thank you so much to the Kiwanis Club.
Okay, thank you. One here. Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the Mineral Point Library. Along with schools, public libraries are the heart of many communities, and Mineral Point is no exception. With our public library within walking distance of our elementary school, visits are easily accessible. On Wednesdays, Mineral Point School is dismissed at 2 p.m. for collaborative time between staff. The public library has hosted Wednesday afternoon programming over the years to help students stay productive during these hours. They also host a robust summer program, and our summer school classes visit the library as well. The public library has been part of 2 grants our school has received called Building Belonging with Books from the American Library Association last school year. The grant focused on building empathy and increasing a sense of belonging in our community through reflective conversations centered around shared texts. Community members, including school staff, engaged in book studies, and shared their thoughts in small group discussions. Thank you very much to the Mineral Point Public Library.
Thanks everyone for coming. We'll next do approval of minutes. There's a regular meeting, November 12th, and Finance Committee, September 21st. I'll take a motion to approve them together or separately.
I'll make a motion to approve together.
1 second. Bush Harris, any discussion or questions? Minutes? Andy, call the question.
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Janetka,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Next is communications. We'll start with board communications received. Start with Joni over there.
Yes, I did receive an email from a parent of the district. I believe that it was received by the whole board, but if not, I'll just touch on it regarding some concerns about the homecoming dance and some of the behaviors. But I want to bring that up so that the parent knows that we are aware of it. My understanding is that it's already being addressed through other avenues. I don't know that any further discussion is needed at this point, but just acknowledge that we received the communication and there's some action happening that isn't going to be showcased in this environment. That's the only one I had.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything else. I just, we should expect some follow-up from administration on this issue, hopefully the parent as well.
Yeah, I just, along that same line, I got a conversation with a parent with some additional behaviors that were discussed when their student got home from the dance, and I've already brought that up with them. So.
I had a couple people reach out, excited that homecoming and all the events were back and how much they enjoyed Mineral Point homecoming. And then I just personally wanted to note that we had the opportunity to travel to a district recently for a football game, and the halftime band, a bigger district than us. The halftime band was about 16 kids, so it was really impressive to see the show that and the size of the band we have here at a smaller district than that, and see the participation and the quality of the show. So that was impressive to see in comparison to the neighboring district is doing in their music department. So.
One of my favorite scenes of just like moments of being in the school district is seeing a guy come out in pads to play his instrument with the band. I just think that's great. Okay. We'll go to citizen communications. Did anyone sign up?
No.
Okay. Anyone present like to speak? Or if you're online, you can use the raise hand icon. Going once, going twice. Okay. Next, we'll move on to items for information and discussion. First will be an update on our board development work sessions. Just thought it would be good just in public forum just to kind of share what we've been doing kind of on the side. We've been working with a facilitator from CISA 3. Amy Nutter, who's a former superintendent. And we've been basically working on trying to pick themes that we want to make a priority for the coming year or two. And we've been having lots of good discussions and votes and kind of shared conversations. And we've centered around recruitment and retention of teaching staff. And we've centered around focusing on making the school district a safe place, both physically and emotionally, socially for all students, staff. And then our third priority is to explore how can we function better as a board and be more efficient, more productive, more helpful for the district, and do our best with and on behalf of the community, and the taxpayers. So I think we have, I don't know, maybe a handful more meetings to go over the course of the school year, and just people should know that they're technically open meetings if people want to attend, and we do keep small records of the meeting. So I'm not trying to hide anything, but it's just something we're doing internally. We're not taking any board action during those meetings. Does anyone else want to just comment on it, or? Is everyone enjoying the experience? Yeah. Not hating it, I guess.
In my day job in the corporate world, we constantly are talking about goals and focus and the things we're going to be working towards. And so it's been really, for me, it's been a really great experience to do that with the school board setting in mind. And I think that having somebody to guide us and lead us through those conversations has been very beneficial.
And I think we're so focused in normal board meetings that we don't get a chance to like step back and talk about stuff in detail. And that's especially post-COVID and reflecting on this year compared to last year. You know, talking through like the high impact items we can all work on. It's exciting.
I often get comments that the school board's always so reactive and they're never proactive, right? And I feel like finally this is a chance where we can just kind of step back and say, okay, what do we really want to focus on before we have major problems, you know? And how can we?
I would share that you're not the first district to do this. I think Dr. Nutter, there's 31 school districts in the CESA 3, and he's worked with about a dozen schools already, you know, different school districts doing a similar kind of system with them, you know, similar kind of retreat. So it's not that it's new, but it's an opportunity for, like you said, for you guys to focus on priorities that you want to see, you want to direct the school to be focusing in on as we move forward as well.
It's also important to note that this is a free service. It's offered by CESA 3 as part of our just annual dues, that we get to take advantage of this facilitator who's dedicating, you know, many hours of his time to help us. So that's a nice service. Okay. Next is an update on student enrollment.
So it's that favorite time of year we get to talk about, is a student or part of a student, or are we talking about the wonderful butts in seats, or what's our enrollment numbers? So I have up for the school board to look at a comparison of basically the last 4 years. I'm sorry, it doesn't fit nicely on the screen up here all at one time, but we can go back to 2019-20. And our enrollment was 763, and these are the actual students in our school buildings. Now, if it's a early learning program or a 4K, they don't count as a full student on the state report. It's either 4/10 of a student or 6/10 of a student. And then 2021, 760, 21-22, 762. 22-23, our current school year, we're at 776 students inside the building. Now, that's not our enrollment numbers when we get 8, because that 776 gets reduced by half or 6/10, depending on where that student is. And we have summer school numbers that would need to go in, but I guess the main thing is looking at our enrollment numbers are still trending in a positive direction for us. We have more open enrolled students in this year than last year, and we have less open enrolled students out in comparison. Now, you'd think for student enrollment numbers, that'd be a great thing, except we don't get to count any of the students that open enroll in our enrollment numbers because they're not our students. They don't live within our school district. So students that open enroll out, we do get to count on our enrollment numbers, but those are also the students then that we pay another school district a portion of the state aid that we get. Just like we get state aid then for the students that come in. Looking at our enrollment numbers, are the third Friday count in September is done. That's where these numbers come from. The state will get those numbers. They'll look at our summer school numbers. They'll put that in their 3-year rolling average and then tell us, here's the total number of students that you're going to get state aid on. So even though we have more students in our buildings this year, our state aid doesn't necessarily equal that number because of that 3-year rolling average. It will be, I'm anticipating that it's going up. We're dropping off a 699 and adding in a 700 plus number. So that should make our 3-year average increase a little bit. I'm hoping it's going up by at least 5 students from last year to this year, which means an additional revenue for the school district.
Would you scroll up a little? Thank you.
So the early childhood students, the top, they count for half a student. And the 4-year-old students, 4-year-old kindergartners, the 4K kids count as 6/10 of a student.
Is the early childhood program, are there still parameters around which students qualify for those services?
Yes.
Okay. I see a lot of consistency from about 5th grade on in our class sizes, but I see more volatility in the younger grades. Having not spent a lot of time with this, is that it looks like maybe that's kind of consistent with our trends year over years.
We tend to pick up a smaller number of students opening enrolling into that high school level. So those numbers tend to stay a little bit more. We have been pretty fortunate that when they open enroll and come in, they stick with us through graduation. Yes, those high school numbers, those upper grade level numbers tend to stay pretty consistent over the last few years.
What kind of feedback are we getting on people open enrolling in and like why they're coming?
Probably one of the number one things I hear when I talk to parents about open enrolling in is, one, I can't find something to buy in Mineral Point because I would love to move here. Or 2, I want to build a house. I've had several families tell me we're building, and then with all of the weather-related issues that have taken place, the hurricanes and fires, I think building supplies, supply chains demand is crazy, so that they've had to put some things on hold. But I have had several families saying, if I could buy something or buy some land and build something to move into town, I would gladly move into town.
They want to move to Mineral Point just to be in Mineral Point, or they want to move to Mineral Point to be in the school district?
Be in the school district. These are families that are calling me about open enrolling their children. And they're the ones telling me if I could move into Mineral Point to come to the school, I would move into Mineral Point.
Or better educational opportunity?
They're not trying to come into town for work or other reasons.
No.
Okay.
No, the vast majority of people want their children to be able to come to school.
Would you scroll to the left?
You don't know specifically what about the district that's attracting them.
If no one's come out and said it to me point blank, I've had people who say, you've got a great ag program. You get people that say, my kid plays with your kids in the summer on some traveling team, and they've just made really good friendships. They want to move in and they want to go to school there. I think we've had a lot of opportunities to showcase some of the things we do. I think the media program certainly helps get Mineral Point's name out there, and that attracts people who are like, hey, if they're doing this, I think that'd be kind of fun. I'd like to be a part of that as well.
Options, the students that are housed out at options, are they in the regular numbers for the grade level?
If they are a Mineral Point student, not every student at options is a true Mineral Point student.
Right, are those students who aren't in our district, are they, but they're attending options, are they open enrolled in?
No.
Okay.
They're just contracted.
They're contracted, they contract a seat for that school placement. The district makes some money off of that to provide that education.
But as an observation, it looks like we on average gain somewhere in that 4 to 5 student range the year that we move from pre-K to kindergarten, which means that we will potentially have another rather small class moving through the elementary over the next 5 years.
Possibility, yes. After looking at the current pre-K at 38, and pre-K is not
Not mandatory.
mandatory, so that's a lot of times that's one of the reasons why that kindergarten number jumps up a little bit more. Those of you that are diehard pointers, remember the Mary Alice Moore preschool. I mean, I sent my 2 kids there, and her daughter went 2 years in a row, and then her daughter cried when she only went to half day preschool. She thought she was missing out on something. It's like, honey, it is only a half a day. Nobody else goes in the afternoon. It's a whole different group. So, but you know, if it's not required, then they don't necessarily send their children there. So there is a little bit of a spike, yeah, when that kindergarten class starts up.
I just wanted to comment that I know during COVID, it was hard to please everybody, to say the least. And there was a lot of concern on the school board about families leaving the district, right? And I know a lot of parents pulled their kids out. So if you scroll back down to the totals, I mean, I was worried that we were going to have to make up some enrollment, but it looks like the year of the lockdown, we were at total 763. And we basically stayed stable through the 2 main COVID years, 760, 762, and now we're up to 776. I don't think 1819 was much higher than 763. And that wouldn't be COVID related, I don't think. 1819 to 1920.
Right.
So that's a good sign that despite how traumatic the last couple of years have been for everybody, we've been able to hold steady and even grow a little bit.
We have lost some families because of that. And you wish you could welcome them back, and interest them in coming back home, so to speak, but they've made the choice, and, I wish them well, but you're right. We have picked up new families. We have picked up some additional open enrollments in. So yeah, our enrollment, basically our open enrollment numbers continue to help us trend upwards because of the not having places to buy or build that are within the Mineral Point community, city of Mineral Point school district. People want to move in. I wish I had the magic wand and could help them do that.
Well, some of that stuff we talked about, highlighting the why for attracting, there's highlighting why for parents on the website, testimonials or something we moved because of X, and now our kids are doing ABC, or just highlighting some of that stuff. I'm sure people are out there looking at school district websites, kind of why should I come here?
I had reached out to Aaron about looking at enrollment trends in Southwest Wisconsin generally, and I think we're going to do that at some point this fall. Because I looked at the data he had sent, and it's really concerning as a region, how small the schools are getting, and this is good for us, but we've got to have that on our radar And I think thinking about how we attract more families to come into the school district is important. And I think what you were alluding to before is an opportunity maybe for the board to get involved as we look at that and develop our plan to maybe have board members reach out to some of the parents of the people that have open enrolled and just ask why, and have a more qualitative discussion about what are their reasons, kind of then gather that data together and share it. I think it kind of, it's not just students, it goes along with recruiting teachers and like what we're talking about, the strategic planning about coming up with something on our website and a video about like why this is such a great place you should come and teach. I mean, sort of the same reasons, a lot of the same reasons of why you should open enroll your kids here. Because I think we'll have to figure out how to remain competitive. And I know other districts also have good board of directors and good staff and everything. And I'm sure that they're looking at this stuff too and thinking about, well, how can we get kids to come from Mineral Point? I did want to comment lastly that I know a few families from Dodgeville that used to open enroll here, and they had their reasons, you know, but when they got into the Dodgeville School District, they actually found that the things that they were worried about in that particular district weren't true. They had a good experience there, and it was just so much closer to home for them. Like, and these were two families that I know that lived on the other side, like closer to Governor Dodge or past Governor Dodge. So, you know, that's bound to happen, that we'll you go back home and it's so much easier to get kids to school and whatever, that, you know, we are going to lose some of them, and it is what it is. But so that was it.
I'm making a note to maybe follow up on maybe doing some new parent surveys, or once we know who's open enrolling in and out, to maybe send something out to them. Can answer a few questions as to why in and out. Yeah.
Do we do exit surveys with the families as they enroll out? Or new families who enroll in?
Well, I will not say that we do a survey. If a student, a Mineral Point student open enrolls out, there's a form that they have to fill out explaining why they want to open enroll out. If somebody moves, sometimes it's a casual conversation of my job changed, or sometimes it's as simple as that, but it hasn't been like exit surveys, a formal exit survey.
But there is some data.
You have a filled out form on any students that had open enrolled out of the district. It kind of explains their reasoning.
Yes, there should be a form, yes.
Good. Next topic is inviting students to the board meetings. I just wanted to follow up on this. I know we had some questions, concerns. I think number one is, you know, who we invite to board meetings in general, and what kind of input do we want in a regular board meeting, and then, you know, what kind of student representation do we want at the board meeting, if at all. I would just like to recommend that that we just start by finding a couple high school students to start coming, and at a minimum, you know, just present highlights about high school, and then, you know, maybe talk to administrators or maybe the high school students about how can we get a feeling of what's going on at the other buildings, you know, middle school, elementary school. I think inviting kids that young to an evening board meeting seems a little less realistic or doable, but I'm certainly interested in getting student feedback at all levels. But you know, just to flesh this out a little bit, you know, I think, you know, things other school districts have done would be like just have the students, you know, come to the beginning of the board meeting, they lead the Pledge of Allegiance, They present school highlights, focusing on academics, athletics, arts, and just other activities. And then this other school district had like a topic of the month that were picked by students that they would talk on. Like, for example, December regular meeting topic is school lunch. You know, just having students, you know, group on school lunch for a little bit, give some feedback, you know. You know, one is service projects, you know. And then, you know, ideally, I think, you know, as part of, especially if they're upperclassmen, you know, I think inviting them to stay for the meeting just to experience, you know, what school governance looks like, you know, good, bad, and ugly. Obviously, they would not be voting members. We could decide whether, you know, we just want to make them available just for like input as we go along the agenda. I can see arguments, yay or nay, on that, but we could. Any thoughts on that, or strong opposition, or a different way you'd like to get students more involved?
I just have one question. Just to, are you planning on inviting different students each, or is it the same students each? I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
You recommend? I don't know. I don't have a recommendation on that. I just asking if is it like we invite student government? We have our student government. Is it, do we invite them and they just rotate through there, or it's just the seniors? Seniors? Is it just these two? Or is it these four, the class presidents? Is it? I'm just asking.
I think you could argue either way, and I think, you know,
I'm just trying to.
I think some districts invite, you know, a junior and a senior to come for the whole year.
Well, that's why I'm asking. I just want to know which way we're looking.
And then,
I'm fine.
then ideally the junior would stay on, you know, as the senior, and that would be more for if you have eager students that are interested, maybe want to go into government or political science, civics, have interest. You know, I think this is a good learning opportunity for them. And so if we have that opportunity, we can do that. But I see a really strong possibility that we may have kids that want to do that.
I'm just
commitment. So maybe we could, you know, offer on rotation, maybe make a long meeting this year. That might be better buy-in. Does any of you guys have a strong
I think like class officers, student council members, the club presidents, you know, club officers. It could be a really interesting mix. I mean, you could have the FFA president come in and present on that club and the ag program, and you know, the VICA club would come in on that, like topical if we wanted to do it that way. But generally, I support the idea, and I think it's a great opportunity for professional development. I had mentioned in the previous meeting, I think it's good to have some kind of format so that they're not like, we don't leave them hanging there, like, and they're really worried about, like, well, what do I talk about? What's okay, what's not okay? And so we can work on the developing that and kind of toning it as time goes on. And then I mean, I would have totally been up for this when I was in high school here. And then there's other kids who hate it and not want to do it.
Right.
So, but just I think making it, you know, an optional thing and a chance for them to absolutely see what governance is all about, and I think it puts a focus on the kids too in these meetings. We haven't had a lot of people attending school board meetings anymore, but there's a few online, and anyway, that's why we're all here for that.
I like what you said about having a format, because I agree. I think some kids are going to through freeze.
Yeah.
I would actually like to see what the student government, what format they come up
Okay, so now my brains are running around with all this now. But so you did mention the other clubs and stuff. So is this a rotation of student government most months, but then all of a sudden now on, and let's say January, we have FFA and skills presidents come. And then in March, we have FBLA and Key Club come, because they are clubs here. And then at some point, we have NHS come. And is it something that you want me to put together, some sort of a rotation like that? You want me to talk to the kids first and with the student government, or do you want, because I would assume you want, student government involves kids from every club, right? That's not, we have very involved kids. But maybe you want the president of the FFA to come versus president of the student body.
I think it would be, we did this 2019, maybe. The student government got really involved on the purpose and put together the diversity day and did a bunch of stuff. And 2 representatives came and spoke at the beginning of the meeting for 5 to 10 minutes about what was going on in the school, what they were doing, what they were planning, what they were involved in. It was fantastic. And it was more than enough for them. They were nervous at times when they got to speak, and there was some back and forth with the students, and we had an opportunity to pick their brain a little bit. And I think that format worked really well and gave them an opportunity to know that, hey, we've got to, as our leadership group, we've got to present to the school's leadership group each month, and what are we going to do and what are we going to talk about. I think if you just picked like a relative, a group that's something going on that month, like maybe FFA president presents during National FFA Month and tells us about the week-long activities, and each we add a club or 2, depending on how many there are, with some relevance that month, instead of this is what we do and everything. Maybe we find a club or 2 that has something to talk about, has something coming up soon, as opposed to just letting us know when they have their meeting and this is what they discussed and stuff.
I would like to see a mix of, if we think of it either as a 12 months of the year or 9 months of the year, if we only talk about when school's in session, but half of those be student government, where they bring a topic, and maybe it is the lunch program, or maybe it is wanting to talk about parking and that they don't like that the teachers get the closed parking lot, or maybe it is, whatever, maybe they need longer passing times in the hall. But I would love for them to have half of the meetings be things that the students want to bring forward, and then the other half, it's a 5-minute presentation from one of the various clubs talking exactly what Andy was saying, about something they're doing, something they have coming up, more than just our meetings are, Monday mornings. But I'd like it to be, a schedule. That people can
Whichever group can would kind of give an overview of what's happened in the last month, and here are the highlights of the last month. Is what I guess after hearing. But we can certainly have conversations. I'm just kidding.
When does the student government meet now? Would it be helpful time?
During lunch, so 11:04 to 11:34. I don't know what's on their agenda for this week. I believe they're this Wednesday, if not this week. I know for sure. I'm not sure which. I don't remember which week we're on. Pitch an idea to them on what we're looking.
Yeah, just go and talk to them so that.
See it. And something that, you're touching on here, Aaron, is that you start with the high school, but I don't want to lose the middle school and elementary school either. So I think we've got to have some kind of collaboration, and it's likely going to have to be principals, that are going to inform, but then the high school student presents, but kind of the whole district, because there's cool things going on in elementary and middle, and I don't want to lose them either. But it makes sense to kind of start at the high school level anyway. But it just would be awesome, because then it's like a touch point for all of us with the students and the community as well. This is recorded, and I see that it's 100 views a month after these meetings are over. So people are watching them to just show, highlight all the cool things that are happening here. Why we should all support it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to, just focus on high school.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. All right, well, I mean, once we kind of gave the green light here in principle, I was hoping to meet with Mr. Wainwright and a group of students to talk about this. And like, to your point, like have them maybe, if there's any interest or energy, just let them kind of drive it and say, this is what will work best for us, whether to feature a club president or if there's two people that want to like be the representatives, for the school year and have them kind of write the schedule and the topics. So that was my next step, was to plan on meeting with whatever students were interested, and whether we kind of hijacked a student council meeting or a leadership class or whatever. I don't know how best to do that.
To Will's point, I would support as well, just an agenda ad at the beginning, maybe after minutes, just a building of, 5-10 minutes. Sometimes we get so involved in the bureaucracy of it all, and we forget to discuss our wins and celebrate the great things that are going on in each program. And I think there's more than enough every month with everything that's going on. And it would be good to be able to celebrate our wins a little bit in here, and especially as somebody without a student in the elementary school or the high school, to hear what's going on in those buildings. The news every Monday is great as well. But maybe a few things that don't make it in there, or a deeper dive into a few things that do. I think it would be great for us and great for the watches as well. And people that read the newspaper and everything, just to hear all the good things that we've got going on.
And to hear with no filter what they think, like they're here. I definitely, I know just muddies the water more, but I definitely like the idea of someone from a different group coming each month. But I also like the idea of having a consistent person and actually see how it works, from start to finish, that even how Robert's rules of order work, so they see one week we maybe bring something up, and then it goes on, we may vote on it at the next meeting, just discuss it one meeting, and then we may vote on it at the next meeting. What can we vote on? What can't we vote on? I think that would just be, for them to see that, I think it would be a great learning opportunity, as well as once they get comfortable being here, maybe we get, I think, more detailed and, maybe more, I don't want to say more honest, because I don't think they'd ever be dishonest, but they feel more comfortable sharing more, maybe, if they put her on the table and saw faces there.
Potential good icebreaker for them could almost be doing like their peers that get recognized.
Well, yeah,
As an idea, but
I think the thought of maybe highlighting academic accomplishments, athletic, arts, miscellaneous activities would be maybe in lieu of recognitions, and have them give a presentation. Yeah.
I'm not sure I want us to move away from recognitions. I think that's
Yeah.
still a pretty cool thing that we do.
Yeah, I see those as recognitions.
Oh, okay, so like in National FFA Month, we might still,
Yeah, like
announce
activities
the-
highlight would be, it's
announce-
National FFA month, and
but like if the football team makes it to playoffs, they could still be recognized in that month as well. Or if there's all state academic football honors or something, I think those are both the same months, right?
Right.
The fall.
to me, those are examples of athletic highlights and academic highlights,
Okay,
right? These are the cool things that happened
okay,
this month in these realms.
okay.
And I think, kind of making sure all the bases are covered helps make sure all students have opportunities to be recognized in other ways. But if we don't feel like, I think to your point, Joni, like if there's like a big, like state championship or something, where we want to invite the team to like shake their hand and like literally congratulate that to me like might be a little different
Right.
than just then saying, hey, these 5 kids went to state, or I don't know, play it by ear.
to start.
Right.
Improve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While we're
Something.
applying it.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's do something and then make it better as we go. That's what we need to do.
Whatever your next step is, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got the green light.
Well, there'll be students that are
Let's
willing.
assume they're gonna wanna line up out the whole way.
I'm sure I'll be getting emails as soon as the meeting's over, but I'm interested.
Those are our students out there, right?
Yes.
Okay, they're volleyball. team. I just wanted to say, you know, we need students like that, right? I don't want to be students from another school.
It is very motivating to have them in the back.
Okay, next is report from the finance committee. So member Bush, you're the chair, if you want to,
Yeah, so we met with,
we'll like summarize what we talked about and then we'll segue into action as far as approving the budget.
we met with Lisa Glassen from Baird. And essentially we have an opportunity with, essentially every district has, 15 to 20% valuation increase in their tax base because the value of homes go up everywhere. I mean, the result of that is pretty much every district's mill rate is decreasing. So fortunately, Mitch got on top of it and met with Lisa, and we have an opportunity to potentially reduce our debt a little bit using the mill rate deficit and the fact that our ask from the taxpayers currently is lower than it was a year ago. So combining those two things and identifying a tax savings essentially a tax savings of over $100,000 in interest. Looking at those options and kind of what's fair to the taxpayer is we determined we would like to levy an additional amount not to exceed last year's total levy to put towards debt prepayment to save the taxpayers money. And the result of this would be, if their taxes go up, it has nothing to do with this. It's that their homes value more than the average home value in it. So we're getting to a place where our net effect in doing this by not exceeding last year's tax base would be, or last year's levy amount would be that we're creating a net effect of 0 or less on the taxpayer. So seeing this opportunity to save them money while not increasing their taxes at all. The finance committee advised that we levy an additional amount that we will know at levy meeting at the end of October, not to exceed 21-22 levy amount.
I would add that we would receive additional state aid in the following year, 24 cents on the dollar of that additional money that would go towards our budget. So not only are we saving money in future interest that we would be paying by paying down the debt faster, but we would have the additional revenue coming in. So it really feels like a win all the way around.
The main drawback that was discussed was, the amount that the school district is taxing the community this year compared to last year is significantly lower. So if we didn't do anything, there would be significant amount of tax relief from the school district's perspective. That would be lost if we levied this additional amount. And I think the finance committee determined that the benefits of taking this opportunity and maybe a little less tax relief, but there'd be no increase in taxes from year to year from the school district. Gives the district an advantage of saving over $100,000 in interest plus gaining a little additional state aid.
Seems better for the taxpayer in the long run as well.
Gotta pay down debt anyway, so might as well use not free money, but it's there for us to use for this.
So we know that the school finance picture, when we look out over the next couple of years is foreboding at best. And this feels like a really reasonable decision to make now that puts us in the best possible position as we head into some challenging years ahead from a financial planning perspective.
Gives us a chance to be proactive, as we were saying earlier.
I know this is the first time we've done it, and I think in a long, long time, but other school districts that have been in similar situations have done the same thing. They've levied an additional amount of money to help try to pay off their debt a little faster. This year, we're in a much better situation. We talked about it last year, and when I met with Lisa, it didn't seem to be as big of a savings. There's as big of an opportunity for the school district to realize some savings for this year. There is that potential where it could make a bigger difference. You have a little bit bigger window, and even with an additional levy, the mill rate is still going to come down a considerable amount of money from last year to this current school year.
Any questions for the finance chair? Anyone on the committee? All right, we'll go to action agenda and we'll take a look at the budget as it currently stands.
So before you have a balanced budget with no additional levy. The mill rate would drop from 1041 to 822. And as chair member, chair of the finance committee, Bush explained, the difficult part is the valuation of the property has gone up. And I tried to share in an article for the paper that if my house was $180,000 based on last year's mill rate, my portion of the tax would have been $1,876. With the valuation increasing in this area by 15.4%, my house is now worth about $207,000. And with a reduction to a mill rate at like $890, I'm paying about $1,859. So, I mean, there is just a slight decrease in what I'm paying for taxes, but it's basically because somebody said my property is worth so much more. You know, and that the school district does not determine that amount of money. They don't set that valuation. So a big jump in your property value and a reduction in what each entity is charging in their each mill rate, county, technical college, and city, you know, everybody can adjust. And like I shared at the finance committee, I was able to speak to the county, and they believe that their mill rate, what they're getting, will probably come down this year, but it will equate to more money because, again, the property values in Iowa County are increasing. So there's no need for them to look at this. You have in your board packet the budget comparison sheet, and I would share that is estimates, because there are certain things that we don't get from the state until the end of the week. So that's why I couldn't say, let's certify the levy tonight, because we'd have our enrollment numbers. We'd know our state aid. We'd know all of those things. That won't be determined until the end of this week. It's usually the 15th of October. But because that's a Saturday, I believe, it'll come out on Friday this year. They'll update all the information. They'll send us our updates. So we'll have much more firm numbers from them. But you see a comparison in those estimates between what 2021 was and what we're estimating 22-23 expenditures are. Net surplus deficit, it is a balanced budget. There was a lot of work on behalf of the administrators, the staff, to get it to that point. I won't say creative budget. There were cuts made in places that I had shared earlier to get us to that balanced budget. And hopefully we get good news on Friday with some of those numbers. Like I said, if our enrollment is up, that will be a positive. That will give us a little bit more breathing room in our budget as well, if we're going to get more state aid because our enrollment numbers are up.
You mentioned in your recent update that we had some additional funds just recently that allowed you to balance the budget.
Correct.
Do you know what that total was?
From the governor, it amounted to about $64,000.
You mentioned cuts. Are there any, when you think through the cuts, was there anything that you feel like has an impact on students or learning?
I'm going to say currently no. There are some purchases that we're holding up on, a couple of technology things that we're holding up on until we get this budget firmed up. But I don't think that's impacted anything. We're at the end of a life cycle for some pieces of equipment that need to be upgraded. They're still serviceable right now. It's something we need to just keep an eye on. And if the budget comes through as we expect, then some of those purchases will go through. We talked about the capital maintenance budget, keeping the buildings up and running. We'll look at try to backfill some of those cuts that provide a little bit more to make sure that we're in a good pit. The facilities are in a good place.
How about any of those cuts having a significant negative impact on our teachers or our staff?
Other than the desire for a third section at one of the grades, I would say at this point, no. But that budget, those dollar amounts don't equate to a full-time staff person either that we're looking at receiving. Yep.
How would you say that situation's going, by the way, with all the additional resources you've tried to direct that way?
I know Mr. Renwick has met recently with him. I'll let Mr. Renwick address. I mean, I've met with this, and had conversations as well with that team. So.
Yeah. It's challenges, no doubt. I continue to take notes and have them share information with me. I would say coming into the summer, I mean, it was a different situation than coming into the fall. Students who have some, just change the dynamic. We're expecting it, not in a bad way, but just
Just a new mix.
the new mix of students. It wasn't what we were anticipating. Some challenges, and we're going to try to do our best within the resource constraints that we have, and you can kind of dig into it.
I mean, in the point where you were asking the board for more resources for more support staff or another teacher, or
those ideas have come up. And I've documented them, and I've tried to put them on kind of a spectrum of, yes, we've already implemented them on the table, not at this time, or no. We have a 3-page deck. Sorry, with kind of half a page. Trying to understand all the influences. It's a pretty complex situation because it's not like me working with kids. Have a confluence of factors that I'm just trying to tease out everything and try to isolate this situation and try to focus the resources there, but then we're not attending to this area. And
are you getting concerned parents?
yes, I've had the parents reach out to me. I think just what we're talking about is just there's a decent number of needs, and are we doing the best we can to address them all? Yeah, it's tough to respond back, but specifics, I've had a few come out. Reach out to me.
We're planning on having a personnel committee meeting
Yeah. Yeah.
for the next board meeting.
Okay.
And I feel like we need to take a deeper dive. Solution at the board level. We can do that. The committee next. We're looking to.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Wednesday before the next board.
Should be November 9th.
If you'd like me to be there, I can share more information. I guess just extend the invitation.
Yeah, because we just would be looking for, know what it is you need.
That's the hard part. A variety of options. Are they going to be, what's going to be most impactful? It is or what will not. I just say the biggest issue is just for the staff that are there, faculty and staff, to attend to all the needs, all the kids. And I think I don't want to speak incorrectly about the situation, but I think we're dealing with this, and then there's other situations that we feel like we're not getting to everyone like we'd like to. I would say, push back on this. If we wait till November, I don't know. I don't know if it's good enough or not. We're going to address it, I guess, rather than later would be my position. I know I'd have to come to the next board meeting anyway, so I feel like I'm doing a little bit of bird watching here.
Well, we're trying to get a sense of how severe the problem is, with a sense of urgency. How many kids are getting affected adversely because of the situation. And, we don't have any of those answers, so.
Would it be okay if I maybe just wrote up a summary of all of my notes, shared it with the board? Okay.
That would be great.
Okay. I think that will help me clarify my thinking.
Yeah, I gather that it's complicated and you have lots of ideas. If you're able to crystallize, if it gets to the point where you're like, well, we need more resources, and I go to the board and ask for them. I think the personnel committee would be an opportunity that is so urgent that we need a special meeting.
Reality is we're going to have 2 more meetings this month. We will all be getting together, correct? The board retreat as well as certified 11. So we will all be in the same room. So it needs to move sooner than later. But it's true.
We're together on the evening of the 24th again. So,
Yeah. I could get you something.
if you could get us something before then, and then if we felt like upon reading that we needed a personnel committee meeting, we could figure that out, time that worked, so that if we need to do some sort of action, we could add it to the 24th. How soon would that need to be on the agenda for the 24th?
The Tuesday before.
Almost
So the
a week before
18th.
then? Okay. That does lessen our time frame quite significantly.
That's when it's posted to the paper.
Okay.
We can adjust that agenda prior to the meeting date, but we get it to the paper on Tuesday, the 18th.
Next couple of days.
In the next couple of
Yeah, I
days.
can do that. Now, I do want to point out too that teachers and staff are doing work. I don't want it to be.
Oh, we believe that.
Yeah. I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay. So, if there are any more clarifying questions, you're looking for a motion to approve the budget as it sits.
As presented, correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
Just to be clear, we're not approving any recommendation out of finance committee because we don't have hard numbers.
Right, so on the meeting on October 24th, when you would, typically the meeting is call a meeting to order, certify the levy, then adjourn. You would need to amend the budget because you'll have that firm number to levies for an additional amount for the debt. And that number would be what you would amend the budget for. So if it's, let's say you're going to levy an additional 200,000, you would amend the budget to say we're going to, levy an additional $200,000 as a debt payment. It'd have to be a motion and second. You could discuss that, you vote on that, so then that budget's amended, and then you would certify the levy based on that dollar amount that's added into this current budget. Does that make sense for everybody?
So in other words, just to give you a sense, our current estimated levy for this year is a little over $300,000 less than last year's total levy. And if we levied an additional $300,000 to pay off debt, we would save at least $114,000 in interest on the referendum debt. That's the kind of numbers we're talking about. But to Mitch's point, we could decide 200,000 or 100,000 or nothing.
If you look on that comparison page in your budget, on your budget sheet, you have about $390,000. The levy for 22-23 is about $390,000. It's this page if you're looking for it in your packet. So you look at the total levy, 3 lines up at the bottom. Last year was 4,407,000. This year it's 4,016,000. So you have about $390,000. You could levy up to that amount of money, and the mill rate would still drop somewhere in the upper 8s, but you would still be saving that about $114,000 on interest. You would hold on to that, make a payment in the spring of the year, to which then we would receive some additional revenue from the state on that 24 cents on the dollar.
Mitch, I wasn't here for it when the budget was approved, I don't think yet. So I just had a couple questions. On page 2, there's line 290 is other employee benefit, and it increases from 90,000 to 146. I was just wondering what that is.
On page 2
of these the line items. 290 says other employee benefits.
I'm sure we prepaid.
You see that, Mitch? It's page 11.
About halfway down.
11 of 41, yeah, number E290.
Yep.
And my other one is a few pages later on page 5 at the very top, the replacement equipment going from 55,000 to 226. And I apologize because I know you guys probably went through this stuff in the spring. Those were just the 2 bigger increases that
And the replacement equipment would have been items that were pre-purchased. And if you remember after the audit, I said there were things that we pre-purchased, but the audit was no. They were moving that into, even though we paid for it out of the 21-22 budget, they transferred that into 22-23.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
that,
I do remember that.
So
and that's the same thing then with this other employee benefits.
I believe it is. I will check for sure, but I believe that's what it is.
Yeah. No. Okay. So even though we already paid for it, it just shows up in this budget because they transferred the money to this year.
Yes, on paper they're recording it here, so it'll be a revenue and expense that's wiped out.
In that same area, page 18 or page, page 3 of the budget. Line 411 is supplies general. That went down by about it went down by 35%. So what would that be? 140,000-ish. Are you seeing it? It went from 405,000 to
Would have been
261,000.
some of the things that we would have looked to try to save and
ahead,
cut,
save
so we
ahead.
would have purchased ahead. We would have tried to pre-purchase some of the things and had them in the buildings leading into this school year.
We have a motion and a second. I think you got Bush Skelving, is that what I remember? Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Metka,
Yes.
Johnston,
Yes.
Gelding.
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next is adoption of the special education policies and procedures.
I'll turn this back over to Mr. Klein.
I think Mr. Wainwright sent this, but every year we have to make assurances that we're following model sample policies provided by DPI. Or we have to submit our substantial difference. We don't want to do that. We do use the model samples. There were updates this year regarding disability category requirements and seclusion and restraint. So we have to, because there were changes and updates, we just need the board to approve that we are adopting those, and then Mitch assures that we followed them, or I assure that we follow them in DPI's revised data forms.
You do trainings with your direct staff to ensure that they're following.
We do, and so we actually purchase a software program that runs the IEPs. There's about 200 schools in the state that use that program, so we know that their forms are up to date, and then we do a training at the beginning of the year with the changes to the forms, and any of the eligibility areas this year was really our focus.
You would have, a year ago at this time,
Yeah.
you
So
approved.
every time that they are changed, then we have to come back and have the board reapprove them.
Questions for Angie? I'll take a motion to approve these policies.
I move that we adopt the DPI special education model policy.
Any discussion?
Metka,
Yes.
Johnston. Yes. Gelding.
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Next is approving a purchase over $10,000 for board policy. This is a transportation arrangement with options.
Yeah, so I've asked Amanda to come and kind of share.
So probably for the last 6 months or so, maybe 10 now. You've noticed there's been some purchase orders come through for transportation. We have a person that we contract with to provide transportation to students. Currently 3 days a week. We started this at the second semester last year. So second semester, we were under the $10,000 cap. This year will be over, but it's money that's coming from the contractor line item that options. Not requesting funds, just requesting approval to use the funds for that.
This is in, these dollars are in the budget. So it's not additional monies, it's just to approve the purchase over the 10,000.
So it's higher this year because it's both semesters instead of the second semester?
Yeah.
Do we provide the vehicle for that
We do,
transportation?
yeah.
And that's part of the vehicle as well as the maintenance and the fuel are already
They're
budgeted
already,
for?
yes. And so since the second year that Options has operated, we have a van that's kept out at Options that's inspected and maintained and insured and all of that. That's where have a remote location, children can't walk to us. Those.
We just need to make a motion to approve the purchase over 10,000.
Yes, this is a contracted service, a purchase service, and the dollar amount comes in over 10,000.
So you've already
close.
approved one. Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm playing by the rules. It was close, but it's
Yeah.
over 10,000.
We wanted to do it.
It's 10,125.
It's a new vehicle or it's just funds for the van?
Funds for the driver.
The van, the
Yeah,
district
we have
owns the van.
We just need the personnel.
Yeah, driver mainly. Got it.
I'll make a motion to approve a purchase over $10,000 for transportation arrangement with options in education.
Second.
Discussion. Thank you for being here to present.
See you.
Did you call the question?
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Petca,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Gelding.
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Young.
Yes. Okay, next we'll discuss posting an instructional assistant.
I am.
Oh, boy.
So I'm gonna be as vague as I can because I don't want to potentially identify a student, but we have a new student at the elementary school that potentially may qualify for special education services later this week. And if they do qualify, they will need an instructional assistant with them. We have been utilizing one of our regular education assistants for the first month of school, but that's not a long-term solution. So I'm coming to see, this would be a 16-hour-a-week position. So not full-time,
4 days a week, 4 hours a day.
4 days a week, 4 hours a day at the most. And then hopefully we would post it and be able to find a pool of applicants. And this would be dependent upon the student qualifying and the parent agreeing.
I'm recalling that early, perhaps just before the school year started, we approved the addition of, I don't recall if it was a,
Year two,
okay.
before
And
school started.
And we said that our needs say that we only need like 1.5, but we felt like with the load, it was reasonable to go to 2. And we not absorb the 16 hours
We
in that
cannot,
time.
we have not been able to. Yeah, no. And I know budgets are tight, so we are going to have quite a bit of carryover from last year from the federal grant. There was, as I said, before school, we were awarded some extra federal money last year that we didn't put into our budget. So I will be able to pay for this 100% grant funded. So there wouldn't be an impact on your budget. It would be absorbed by our budget.
This would be a required position.
It is required, yes.
It's a new student or
It's a student newly enrolled to our elementary school, yes.
you can't use transfer services.
No,
No.
they live in, they live in district, yes.
Oh. They've always lived.
Yeah. It's just a new student.
So it wouldn't impact our budget this year, but this is a position we need to plan on being able to support going forward.
I still think that we potentially at least would be able to absorb some of that through the grant funded award. Our federal grant is also impacted by enrollment. So our overall grant actually went down this year for the first time since I've been here because our enrollment has declined on the 3-year average. And so general student enrollment impacts grant awards, but I do think we could at least play a portion and add, at 16 hours a week, it's a relatively small number because there's no benefits. I think when we first computed, it's about $11,000 if you start at our base salary for 16 hours a week for the term of the year. And that was for the entire year. So that would be like the max right now.
What do you feel like the likelihood is of finding a candidate who's willing to work?
So the last time we hired a 16-hour-a-week position, we actually did have several candidates who wanted that. So I'm optimistic. I also am hoping to potentially reach out to some students in the education department at Platteville, since it is, I teach there on Thursday nights, and I know several of the students in my class don't have classes Thursday afternoons or Fridays. And so I think even potentially like a combination that maybe we could find some students in education who are going to be teachers and do a split and make that 2 part-times instead of 1 16-hour position or something like that. But I just never know because I wasn't sure the last time we had to post for this, and we had several really good applicants, and the person that we hired is amazing. So I'm not sure. Fingers crossed.
We got to this point now because it was a new student and we weren't sure what kind of needs they had going in.
So they've had a referral in for special education, which is, a process of referral and consent and collecting data and testing. And so they've needed somebody with them since day one, but special education can't provide that service if they're not identified. So we've been utilizing one of the regular education assistants who typically helps with interventions and district assessments and scoring in the first month of school until interventions start. We've repurposed her for this first month of school, and the teachers that she worked with have just been really accommodating to let us use her. But obviously, that's not what her role typically is. So she needs to get back to her regular role. And if the student qualifies, this would be the best. We've been trying to use the staff that we have right now, yeah. Like, knowing it was maybe a short-term thing.
I mean, that was, I guess I'm not concerned about using staff appropriately. It's just that the special education referral process takes
It
4 to
does.
6 weeks.
It does. So
figure out what the
once
students' needs are.
a referral is made, we have up to 15 days to collect information from all the parties and get parent consent. And then you have up to 60 days to have the testing completed and do all of your data gathering. So it is very specific and time bound in the process, but it's not a real quick process. And in this case, we have multiple service providers that are doing testing. So this is actually pretty quick considering it's only a month in. I mean, sometimes we do get, I would say sometime between 45 and 65. The 45 and 55 days is more average. You're doing it within 4 weeks is pretty quick.
And part of the reason for that is state laws and regulations have changed because they just don't want you to say, oh, special ed, oh, special ed, oh, special ed. Well, now here's some additional funding and there's some less testing requirements so there's parameters put in place to prevent schools from just turning around and saying, we can immediately identify somebody as a special ed student needing additional services.
It's a very procedural process because we have to notify them that we're making a referral. Then I have to notify them that we got the referral. And then I have to collect information from them. And then I have to get signatures and, they have to have the notice of referral before I can do the next step. So there's always a couple of days in between each step of the process. So sometimes getting a parent signature takes a little while. We've actually incorporated DocuSign this year, so I'm excited. Maybe we'll be able to get a little quicker turnaround time, but yeah, it's pretty, I think from when we got the signature to now, so it has moved pretty quickly, even though we're a month.
When there's a process of collecting documentation,
Absolutely.
which is time consuming.
And assessing the student, it's not just 30 minutes on one day, we did multiple measures. Yeah, it can for some parents, I'm sure, feel like a long process, but we have to do our due diligence.
And how much of that due diligence is state requirement?
Comprehensive assessments, comprehensive evaluations are state required. We're not just keying in on one, we're looking at the whole child and all of their needs, which takes multiple. By the team that's named. Not just me.
I'll take a motion to approve the professional assistance posting.
I move that we approve the posting for instructionals.
A second.
Netka Bush. Any discussion or comments? Okay.
Netka,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Gelding.
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes. Next, we'll go to business services. Motion to approve credit card statement of activity and bills payable separately or together.
I move that we approve the credit card statement of activity and the approval bills payable together.
I'll second that.
Netka Skelding. Any discussion, comments?
I did just want to note on page 52, we did receive $20 of credit for 2 peanut butter filled pretzels.
I was waiting for that to come through.
No further comment.
They were full.
Any other discussion comments? Would you call the question, please?
Metka,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, we've got a board development meeting this Wednesday.
Log your surveys if you haven't.
Both both of them.
Yes, there's
Yes,
two,
yes,
retention and recruitment. Came from Dr. Nutter.
Not naming anyone.
I can't remember who was on the second tab. I was the last person to actually fill them out. I think one person.
And then there's multiple who did, because I'm like, oh. Okay. I'll get
So
that.
that's Wednesday night at 6, and then October 24th at 6 PM, we will certify the levy. So you have those two dates, the 12th, this Wednesday, and the 24th. We'll begin.
I like that.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
I mean, we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you online.